Hi everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. I want to thank everybody so much for being here tonight, and for all of those who may be new to the show, if you would please subscribe, I'd appreciate it, and don't forget to give the show a like. Now tonight our topic is doppelgangers, and I am very excited to bring tonight my two favorite people in the paranormal, Dave Spinks and David Weatherly, and they will be talking about doppelgangers tonight. And also I want to say that it's David Weatherly is a paranormal investigator, author of Black-Eyed Children, Strange Intruders, and Wood Knocks. Dave Spinks is also a paranormal investigator, and he is soon to be author. His book will be released by next month, his new book. And David and Dave Spinks are investigators of the Society of the Supernatural, and I want to bring them on. Thanks so much, guys, for coming on to the show tonight.
Hey, Noreen, thanks for having us.
Now,
Hey,
Dave.
Noreen, thanks for having us.
Oh, sure. Now, Dave Spinks, would you like to tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself?
Oh, yeah, I've been investigating, researching the supernatural and paranormal realm for 30 years, and, it's been a real up and down ride for me. Experienced a lot of crazy and unexplainable things during that time, and over the last two and a half years, I was fortunate enough to meet David Weatherly, and man, we've really been hitting the investigations hard all over the country, and
I've
been investigating amazing evidence, and I'm super stoked to be working with him on my first book, and we got a lot of awesome stuff coming up, guys.
Awesome. And David Weatherly, would you please like to add information for the viewers?
Sure. Well, I've been doing this stuff 40 years now. I'm going to have to stop saying how long. I think it's starting to show my age. But, I'm just absolutely passionate about the paranormal and supernatural, and have been since I was a kid, and just never stopped pursuing this stuff. All realms of it, whether it's haunted locations, cryptids, UFO cases, ancient mysteries. We run the whole gamut. And like Dave said, we've been doing a lot of investigative work the last couple of years together, and it's just worked out really well. We have Society of the Supernatural now, and anybody that follows any of our stuff, you'll see that we're really tearing it up kind of all over the country, and soon stuff coming from abroad too, so stay tuned.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Now, tonight's topic is doppelgangers, and I'm really excited. I've never done this topic before on any of my shows, and I'm really excited about this. For one thing, Dave Spinks and myself have actually had doppelganger experiences, and we'll tell you about those later on in the show. So let's start the show off, and how about telling the viewers exactly what is a doppelganger?
Well, sure. So doppelganger is a German word, and literally translates as double goer. This term actually, it didn't come into widespread use in the Western world, and probably until like the 1850s, mid 1800s. And prior to that, we find a lot of regional words around the world that are the same concept, it's just different terms were used. So this whole idea of a doppelganger, it's really curious when you start looking back through history, because people are always looking for an explanation, and this is one of those things I think within the supernatural that there's not one specific explanation to define what these things are. It really kind of is case by case. In some situations, we have what appears to be an apparition of a living person appearing in one location, while the actual living person is somewhere else, sometimes partway around the world or more. So this is a weird kind of spirit image, but there are other occasions where we find cases that the implication is it's some type of a sinister entity almost that is taking the form of a person, and it's not necessarily a demon, but it may be something akin, for instance, to one of the Fae. In Ireland, where I've done a lot of research, we find the term fetch. And even today, in recent years, I've been to Ireland and heard this term quite a bit. It essentially is a doppelganger, but a fetch is, again, an image of a living person that is seen in a different location. Now, almost hands down, when you go to different mythologies around the world and different cultures that talk about these doubles, they're seen as being very sinister. They're either omens of death. Very often that's the case, especially in Ireland and parts of Europe, to see an apparition of someone who's living, but you're seeing them where they shouldn't be. That is often a precursor to some great tragedy, or more often than not, to that person's death. There are, interesting enough, and we can talk about this a little more later in the show, there are a lot of modern cases of what appears to be demonic activity or negative entity activity where these doubles are showing up. I want to throw this in here while it's at the top of my head. Dave, you and I were at Tala a couple of months ago, and we had a whole conversation with Copperhead, who, if you guys know anything about Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, Copperhead is kind of an iconic guide at this place. Spent a lot of years conducting tours, and he told us several stories of seeing of doppelgangers, of him roaming the building, and he's had other guides come up to him and say, how did you get here? I just saw you down, corridor B. And he's like,
Yep.
No, I've been right here with this group of people. No, you walked right by me. You looked kind of spacey. So, these cases crop up all over the place. And, Dave, you and I talked about this briefly recently. There seem to be a lot more of these things showing up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've heard several stories of folks telling us similar type stories as the Copperhead story, and that going back to the Copperhead story, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is the second largest hand-cut stone building in the world, only to the Kremlin. So how could someone be on one end of the building 1 second, and at the same exact time someone's seeing his exact duplicate over on the other end? It's just not possible. So,
right.
Those are the kind of things we look for. And, going back a little bit further into the doppelganger history, I was able to research and find a little bit of stuff on the Zoroastrianism belief system when it comes to doppelgangers. And what that means is it goes almost back into the Anunnaki times. And I saw this really cool stone carving that depicted what looked two dueling beings that look similar to the Anunnaki symbolism we've seen, all over on TV and whatnot. And what that means is it follows the cosmological model of dueling, one representing good, one representing evil. And that's some of the earliest things that relate to doppelgangers that I found. And it goes back to the 3rd century. So it goes way back in there. And then you go into other cultural belief systems like the Hopi. They believe that there's two twins, and one is called the child of the sun, and one is called the child of the water. And in their belief system, what it means is whatever's happening on our world, the exact opposite is happening in the underworld and vice versa. So, you have all these cultural beliefs that go way back. And you can even go into the Egyptian mythology. They had one that was very similar to the doppelganger called a Ka, K-A. And then there's the Norse mythology of the Vardocker. And what that was is it even talks about it. It's a ghostly double. And David touched on it earlier when he was talking. What they believed was oftentimes a ghostly double of a certain person would show up at a location and walk around like normal, smelled like that person, had the same mannerisms, talked like that person, but yet the real person was in this other area. So, and then you go into Scotland in the Orkney Islands. They had this creature that they call a trow, T-R-O-W. And the trows would essentially replace, it's said that the trows' infants were often sickly, and they would take their infants and swap them with normal human babies that were in good health, and the trial babies would actually transform themselves to look exactly like that human baby that was stolen from the humans. So you got all these different cultural beliefs, that go way back into these doppelganger type scenarios.
I wanted to ask, the doppelganger is supposed to bring impending doom or death. Would that be if they saw themselves? They would have to see themselves, or if they saw somebody else? Would the death come to the person that they saw, or if they saw their own doppelganger?
It's the person whose doppelganger is being seen, but it's not always seen by the individual whose doppelganger it is. I'll give you two examples of famous people. During the Victorian period, there was a vice admiral named Sir Tyrone, I believe was his name, and he was out at sea, and in London, his family was having a party. Now, numerous people at the party that night saw the vice admiral at the party, staring out the window. It turns out that he actually died that same night when his ship went down, far out at sea. So, here we have sort of, the two events are happening at the same time. So it's not exactly a spirit that is going back to its home or to try to say goodbye or anything, because there's not that kind of interaction. It's just this weird ghostly image of someone occurring, where they sort of belong, while they're suffering the fate of death. So, in this case, it was considered an omen to the people who saw him standing there, because everyone knew that he was out to sea and he wouldn't be back for some time. And obviously, they found out later that he had perished that same night. Another example of a famous person is Abraham Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Abraham Lincoln, if you go through his papers, he described seeing his own doppelganger on a number of occasions. And what he would see is he would be laying in bed in his bedroom, look across the room, and see himself standing in the mirror. Now, this was happening during the election when he was running for a second term, and his wife believed, turned out correctly, that he would not survive a second term in office.
Right. Yeah.
So, there we have two famous examples, one where the person has seen their own doppelganger, one where they're not. But in both cases, these are, representative of the passing of the person.
Now, go ahead, Dave. Did you want to say something?
Oh, no. Lee, did you have a question, Ori?
Well, I read something about bilocation. A term used when discussing doppelgangers is a word that describes an instant of a person or an object that seems to be in two places at the same time.
That comes out of the Far East. If you read, there's a lot of ancient texts, particularly talking about some of the teachings out of Tibet and areas in that region of the world, where these monks developed very particular powers. Now, they have different terms for them. In India, they're called cities. They're essentially different levels of attainment that you reach by various practices, be it meditation and so forth. There are legends of some of these monks being able to bilocate. And in fact, there's a famous series of books called Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. And there were Westerners who went over there and met some of these monks and wrote about some of the things that they had experienced. And there's a case in there of a monk saying that he would demonstrate this concept of bilocation. And it turned out that another traveler saw this monk and actually walked a portion of the road with him up from the village, while at the same time, this same monk was sitting in the village with other people. So he caused himself to be in two places at one time. Now, this is a really different type of thing. It does create a doppelganger, but essentially the concept in Eastern mystical terms, is that the person has achieved the ability to send a portion of their essence somewhere else in the world to cause a form of themselves to appear for a brief time.
Yeah, that's really strange. And you can actually supposedly communicate with it like what you just said.
That's correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Dave...
There's actually a famous story about that, and I can't think of the actual name of this nun, but this nun was from Spain, and she was said to be able to bilocate, but she said that the angels carried her spirit to this other location and was doing the teachings of God that way, and people saw her when she was actually still in Spain, saw her over in another country. So, there's tons of stories like this, and the whole doppelganger deal really, it fascinates me. There's so many different stories, so many different instances of people. There's actually a famous painting by an artist named Dante Rossetti that was done in 1864 that depicts a couple strolling through the woods, and they come up upon their exact doubles, and the man draws his sword, and the woman faints in just utter disbelief. And there's a famous painting about that, and I found that. I think that was a pretty fascinating painting. Is really it's a well-known painting, and it goes all the way back to 1864. And excuse me, David touched on that story about the ship's captain, and that was one I read that I thought was really, really interesting. Now, was that his ghost that those people saw? Was he already dead, or was it at the same exact time?
Oh my
when
God!
The ship was sinking.
That's an awesome question, Dave.
See, people don't, modern science, no one can explain the doppelganger theory. It's not known what's going on, if it's all interrelated, like David said. And modern scientists will write it off as schizophrenia or glitches of the brain. All these weird terminologies they're using to write it off as just merely mental illness, and I don't buy into it. I don't buy it. But not every case is just, you can't write it off as mental illness, because there's
that
so many.
That kind of segues into something else too, Dave. When we're talking about modern science and modern terms of looking at these phenomena, we're now in a place in the world where we've got all of these quantum scientists figuring out different things, and one of the things that has intrigued me the last several years they've been talking about are other dimensions. And quantum science has essentially said, we know there are other dimensions out there. We don't know how to get there or what's there, but we know they're there. And of course, one of the many theories of that is that there are parallel universes, where alternates of us exist. Now, this is not a new concept either, and I tell you guys, for anyone who's never seen it, if you're interested in this topic at all, there's an episode of The Twilight Zone from the very first season. It was a story written by Rod Serling, and the story is called Mirror Image. And I won't blow the whole thing for you, but it essentially deals with a woman in a bus station who keeps seeing herself. She's seen her doppelganger run around this bus station. And it's interesting because she tries to convince people that she's seen this duplicate, this woman that looks just like her. But no one will believe her, because this doppelganger is really quick. She'll dart around the corner, or she'll vanish into the bathroom and do all these crazy things. And the people in the bus station end up thinking, this woman's losing her mind, or she's schizophrenic or something like that. And then they call the guys in the white coats to come get her. So I won't blow the end of the story, but it's really intriguing. And again, this is Rod Serling writing in the 1960s, and he did this really cool doppelganger story for Twilight Zone.
That is interesting, especially for the 60s. Well, but David, according to quantum physics, they say that it's impossible for particles to exist in two places at once. And you're laughing.
But what's fascinating is that quantum science is. I've had several long conversations with quantum scientists, and I find these guys pretty fascinating because some of them, if you can get them to talk privately, they'll basically admit, look, science reached this sort of finite point where we just didn't know where to go, so they started looking to ancient spiritual concepts. And in doing that, they've opened themselves up in a different way. I believe that the quantum sciences really are a marriage of science and spirituality at this point. And as that continues to unfold, I think we're going to see some pretty intriguing things. All of these barriers keep coming down, and there's thing after thing that science says, well, this can't be the case, this can't happen. And then they prove, well, yeah, guess what? It probably can. Now we've got CERN cranking out that's opening portals to who knows where. So it's going to be a crazy world in the next 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Science is an ever-changing thing, several hundred years ago they thought the Earth was flat,
Right.
So, nothing's for sure in anything. I mean, there's always new discoveries being made. There's by leaps and bounds. Science is changing every day, folks. So you never know what they're going to find, from the one day to the next. One thing, that I thought was notable when it comes to doppelgangers is there's several famous authors that wrote books, dealing with doppelgangers, to include Edgar Allan Poe, Clive Barker, Francis Grogg's in the glossary, Francis Grogg's glossary, excuse me if I mispronounced that. In the New English, in terms of being used in paranormal terms, was the first time that doppelganger was used, and as David said earlier, fetch is a key word to that, because they call it a fetch over there, and that was modernized in the UK. So that and it goes back, guys, way back to the 1700s in modern English terms. So it's been around a while.
Okay, what more can you tell us on myth, mythology, and folklore on doppelgangers?
Well, there's one scenario that some people believe that you cannot see your own doppelganger, or if you do, you will die. That's one thing. I think we touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
And then there's other instances that foretold an oncoming death, because someone saw Joe Blow's doppelganger, and then a week later they died. That's another one of the, Harbinger of Bad News type deals. There's all kinds of.
Outside of this idea of biolocation, if we step away from that possibility to explain doppelgangers, we're really looking at a lot of explanations that get into very negative territory. And as Dave said just a moment ago, more often than not, seeing these doppelgangers is an omen of death. Particularly when you go to Europe and a lot of the old Celtic lands, these were seen as being very, very negative things. They were considered an apparition of some kind, harbinger of death, and it's if you go further back, you blend into a little bit of the Fey mythology, and some of that lore gets a little bit stranger, because then you get into the idea of shapeshifters, entities that are able to transform and take on someone's image in order to gain access to the family or the land or whatever it is. And that kind of it all interconnects so much. I mean, we bring that into the medieval period and even into modern times, and we find this idea that sometimes demonic entities will take on the form of a person in the family so that they can penetrate in and cause more harm. I've worked a lot of cases that were very negative hauntings, where people in the family will report that the target of the family seems to appear in multiple places at the same time. And this is some kind of a very sinister energy at work here, because there was a case I had several years ago. The young man in the family was really being plagued by some type of negative entity, and he was a teenager, and some of the activity was poltergeist like, but then people were seeing things like this this kid would be sitting in the living room watching television, and his sister would see him upstairs walking in the hallway, walking into her bedroom or something. And she would go in there, and then there was nothing there. So we have these cases where clearly these dark entities use it as a way to taunt people psychologically. Because, imagine the effect of a family living in a home and they're seeing a double of a person and they don't know which one is which part of the time. So it's a very disturbing aspect to some of these cases, I believe.
Oh my God! I just thought of something. Now this is sci-fi. What if that doppelganger and the real person are close by, but that and people are talking to the doppelganger, and then they see the real person? So could that doppelganger say, "No, what are you talking about? I'm the real person"?
Oh yeah, anything's possible.
Sure.
There's a famous case about almost a similar situation to that, Maureen, and you might know what it is. Her name was Emily Sagee.
Yes.
Sagee, sorry if I mispronounce it. It's Sagee. She was a very well-known and liked school teacher at an all-girls school in the 1800s. And something weird about her was that she had changed jobs 19 times in 16 years. And the newest school she was at was a very high-class, uppity school, for rich folks' kids. And they soon found out why she changed jobs so many times, because the first instance, she was teaching a class of 13 kids, and she's at the desk, and right behind her is her her doppelganger, just standing there as clear as day, and all the kids saw it, but she did not even know it was there.
Yeah.
And as this story goes on, people would interact with her doppelganger. And when the doppelganger would manifest, she would act, there was reports from the students and the other teachers that she would act really groggy and she was out of control. She wasn't her normal self. But the doppelganger would be mimicking her moves exactly. Like if she would put her arm up, so would the doppelganger. Or she would turn her head, so would the doppelganger. If she would talk, the doppelganger's mouth would move. And it got to a point where the people started approaching this doppelganger, the students and other teachers, and they would actually walk right through it, but they reported that it had texture and it felt as if they had walked through a heavy cloth. Well, this whole manifestation progressed to a point where the doppelganger would often be seen in other areas of the school when she was like out in the garden and whatnot, and it got to the point where the kids and the parents and stuff were freaking out really bad, and they started pulling their kids out of the school, so the school had no choice but to let her go. And she was a very excellent teacher, they said, and she was well liked, but it got so bad that they just had to remove her from the school. So I find that a fascinating story too.
Yeah, I wonder if they continue to see what else was happening in her future life. What was happening when she tried to get other jobs? Does anybody know if this continued on with her through her whole life?
I've tried finding some information on that, but there was nothing that I could find on it. If anyone followed up in her, future life after that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other?
But this was a very prestigious school, and one of the students of a wealthy family, they're the one that reported the story in the first place, and they told all about what was going on and all the strange happenings, seeing this teacher's doppelganger, all around her the whole time when she's teaching class and in the school itself. So, and there's numerous witnesses, not just one or two people saying they saw this.
Yeah, there's other stories from the 1800s that have been documented, like Catherine the Great. Do you know the story of Catherine the Great?
Oh yeah.
You want to tell?
Yeah, that story was her. She was getting up there in age and everything, and her servants came to her while she was in her bedroom and said, "How did you get up here? We just saw you in the throne room." And she didn't believe them, of course, and they're like, no, we saw you. So she went, they begged her to come. So she went down to the throne room, saw her own doppelganger, and she died a week later.
Yeah. What about Queen Elizabeth?
The first one, Queen Elizabeth the First.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was, that story, she was in her bedroom and, laying perfectly still and everything, and it was reported that she saw her doppelganger in her room, and she soon died thereafter.
That's so weird. So how come we're hearing these stories of death from these well-known people? Are there any up-to-date stories on people that have seen their doppelganger and died? Or other people have seen their doppelganger? I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen any modern.
I haven't seen any modern ones of famous people. I mean, there are a few reports here and there of, people who are, just normal everyday people, not stars or anything, politicians or anything like that, who have reported seeing their doppelgangers and pass away soon afterwards. But it's almost as if we've moved into a different era of how these things are manifesting or why they're manifesting. And it's weird how the phenomena bleeds over into so many areas of the supernatural. Dave and I were talking earlier, and I was telling him, I've had some cases in the last couple of years of people reporting doppelgangers of someone they knew, but the doppelganger had solid black eyes. And I get these reports because it's a whole black-eyed person report, but then they're saying, well, there's something else I need to tell you about this person I saw. She looked exactly like my sister. They could have been twins or doubles. And this is just a bizarre twist, I think, on these cases. But again, it seems to point to some type of negative entity that's able to assume the form of a living person.
Wow. I'm going to have Roy start to take the questions from the viewers, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so then what I'm wondering, since, Dave, do you want to talk any more about any myths or folklore before we get into Dave's sightings of a doppelganger? Anybody?
No, I mean, it's all relevant. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing when it comes to these doppelgangers. It pushes into all different aspects of the paranormal, from just various entities and reports of these demonic type beings, as David said earlier. Everything I've read for the most part on a doppelganger is that it's a negative type entity. It seems to be some kind of harbinger of ill fate to come to people when they see these things.
Yeah, pretty much all the lore around the world, when they're talking about doppelganger or fetch, whatever term they use, they're talking about a negative manifestation of some kind. Now that's different than the ability to biolocate, like we were talking about previously. So keep in mind those are separate phenomena. In a sense, they're just very interrelated and very similar. But this whole concept of a doppelganger, it's something that's much more sinister in cultures all around the world.
But when you hear about doppelgangers, where they'll see the same person that is home, but they'll see him at a shopping center, say, why is that considered evil?
Well, I'm talking about the cultural implications of seeing a doppelganger.
Oh.
If you're literally, if the person is literally seeing themselves or seeing an exact double of a person that they know, we're talking about something that is traditionally seen as a bad omen.
Okay.
Now, you got to sort of set aside too the idea that everybody has a twin or a double out there, and this again is something separate from the concept of a doppelganger, because I've known plenty of people who've met someone that looks really, really similar to them, maybe from another country or another part of the world. And, this is just two people out living their lives, the normal everyday lives. Dave Spinks might have a double in Scandinavia or something, for all we know, who's, going to work every day and doing whatever. So.
Oh my God. tell us your experiences now with Doppelganger.
Well, I'll tell you two stories that happened here where I live. Didn't happen to me personally, but it happened to people close to me. The first one was the two neighbors across the way here. The two daughters were out on the porch, and the neighbor across the way from their house started yelling, talking to their mom, who wasn't there. The two daughters said, "Who are you talking to?" And they said, "Your mom, she's right there next to you." Well, she wasn't. And they swore to God that they saw their mom standing right there on the front porch with them, and they were hollering, both of them, the daughter and the mom of the neighbors were saying, hey, asking them whatever question, and they were like, why isn't she responding to us? And they're like, who are you talking to? And there was no one there but the two daughters. The mom wasn't there. So that was the first one. And then the second one had to do with someone close to me seeing me in the house in a red shirt, and I wasn't there. I was not even here. And they swore that I walked in and to the kitchen and was in there doing something, and then when they came out of the laundry room, I was not there anywhere to be found. So, and I trust what they say because they're someone close to me, and that was really eerie. And I only have one red shirt. I have a red shirt that says Coca-Cola on it because I drink Coca-Cola, But, I thought that was odd because I wasn't even wearing that shirt that day or anything. And that's a traditional doppelganger type tale right there. And they knew it was me. They saw me. And I'm like, man, what's going on here? I'm going all these haunted locations and investigating. Is something trying to manifest to manipulate people close to me, or what's going on with that, So it was kind of a little bit hair-raising,
Wow. All right, I'll tell you my story. I've seen two doppelgangers in my home, and both of them were my husband. And the first time it happened, I had one of the phones in a location in the kitchen, and I was in what we call the big room, eating room, and I was sitting there, and the phone rang, and I looked over and I saw my husband go to the phone, and then I didn't pay any attention. After that, I didn't pay any attention, and then I was waiting for him to tell me, who was on the phone, and I thought, oh, that's weird. Where did he go? And so I said, Jim, and there was no answer, and so I went up to the stairs where we have our master bedroom upstairs, and I said, hey, Jim, and he was taking a shower, and I said, were you down here answering the phone? And he said, no. And when Jim came downstairs, that doppelganger had the exact same clothes that Jim had on when he came downstairs. And then I saw, that's weird, and then I did see a second time Jim's doppelganger in the house. And I've only seen him that 2 times, and that's it. I haven't seen any more.
See, it makes you wonder, right, Noreen? You used to investigate all the time. I investigate. David investigates. Jim works on a haunted location.
Yeah.
So, is there something trying to manifest, itself as portraying our loved ones and manipulating it, to a negative degree, like David talked about earlier? That's one of the traditional, beliefs in a doppelganger.
I don't know. That's really strange, though. Do you want
Yeah,
to? Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to say on doppelgangers before we take questions?
No, let's take some questions.
Okay. From Mama Joe Buffalo. Question: can we dream of our doppelganger?
Yes. The poet Shelley dreamed several times of his own doppelganger, and in fact dreamed of his own death, and in some of those dreams dreamed of seeing his doppelganger. So that gets into different territory once again. Are we is our subconscious projecting into the future or outside of ourselves to dream of ourselves in a different way. That's probably a whole show within itself. But the short answer is that yes, people do believe that you can dream of your doppelganger.
Really? Wow. All right. Another question from Sweet Hindi. Are doppelgangers physical? Like, can we touch them?
Well,
Yes, they're physical.
According to some of the reports, like the school teacher one, people said they walked right through the doppelganger, but it had a texture to it. So, there you go.
Yeah, and there's other reports of these doppelgangers showing up and physically doing things in a home. For instance, the case I talked about earlier, the girl who saw her brother's doppelganger upstairs. This kid walked down the hall, turned the handle on the door, walked in, and shut the door. So they're able to certainly manipulate physical things and be a physical presence in our world part of the time that they're here, at least.
All right, another question from Nanny Tristan. Would it still be a bad omen if you didn't see a face but knew who it was?
That's a good question, and it gets kind of tricky, when we talk about this. And I like to try to emphasize that in traditional cultures around the world, the idea of this doppelganger is seen as something negative. So it doesn't mean that every time someone reports a doppelganger that a death is going to occur, because we get into such a gray area, which happens a lot in the supernatural, trying to find explanations for these things. And as I said at the top of the show, I don't personally believe that there's one singular explanation as to what a doppelganger is. I believe that a portion of the time, yes, they are some kind of an omen, but other times it may be some kind of entity trying to manipulate things. Other times, it's just hard to say. So, I think to try to answer that question, you have to sort of look at the circumstances of the manifestation and, what was going on at the time and what has unfolded since then. Good question, though.
All right, from Phil M. If you see a doppelganger, is there anything you can do to protect yourself from protect yourself from the future, or is that pretty much your portent of death?
Mm-hmm. I
I
mean,
sort of just answered that.
Yeah, you sort of just answered that one, but I don't think nothing's set in stone, on anything in the world. Personally, I think maybe things we all do portray our destiny or make things happen. So I think you can always do something to protect yourself, whatever spiritual means necessary to utilize for yourself. Something that I was going to throw in there on one of the earlier questions was, not all of us, but a lot of us have had that deja vu experience, where you've been somewhere before.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've had it several times in my life, where I was just there and I was like, man, I haven't been here before, but I knew I hadn't really been there before, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those crazy things. And that goes along kind of with some of these stories of the doppelgangers being in another place and while you're in another place at the same time. And it goes along with what David said in the parallel universe, is something that is our exact opposite, but the same as us, punching through into our realm, or what's going on here, or is it some kind of entity portraying us to do negative things? Who knows? Nobody knows for sure.
And that's
Yeah,
interesting.
and in terms of that current question, don't assume that it's an omen of death. It very well may be some kind of other effect that's coming in, and maybe an entity that's trying to do something psychologically, or that has followed you home. So, in that situation, take whatever protective measures fit in with your particular religious or spiritual tradition. That's always a good thing to do in situations like that anyway.
Absolutely.
And okay, so this is interesting because the next question is from Donna Gorton. With all the portals reported, is it possible our doubles from another dimension popping through.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I believe so. I mean, I believe, that there are portals. I mean, we've come across some ourselves, I think, in our investigations, where the activity in that specific area is just off the chart, whether it be environmental reasons or people opening doors, don't know what they're doing and not closing them. Just there's so many factors that are involved, in portals. So, I mean, that's a whole nother show right there, isn't it, David?
It is. And, this is one of those things that I find very intriguing because I've researched this whole concept of portals or windows, for a very long time. A lot of ancient cultures talk about it, and a lot of people within the paranormal have talked about it over the years, people like John Keel and so forth. And, you're looking at this concept now with quantum science saying, oh, yeah, there are other parallel dimensions. But, again, it's interesting, too, because you can go through, my God, there's so very many shows, television shows, movies, series, and all kinds of things that present this idea of parallel universes, of other versions of us, doing something slightly different or completely different. And it's amazing how often it crops up in fiction. It really is. And that makes you wonder, why are we seeing that so much year after year, seeded into the consciousness? What are we tapping into? Where is that coming from?
Mm. Well, the next question is from Nanny Tristan, but she must have come in late to the show because this was already talked about. But she is asking, can the doppels speak or can they interact with the living?
From numerous reports, yeah, absolutely. There's numerous reports of them smelling, walking. All their mannerisms are the same, talking, opening doors. The whole plethora of something that the normal person would do as well.
Another question, Catherine Rocha. Could they be a type of an elemental?
That's a possibility. That kind of gets into some of the folklore out of Europe. This concept that some of the elementals, if you will, are able to shapeshift and assume human form for a time, sometimes the form of someone they've interacted with or seen.
Okay. Annie Tristan, do you have to be close emotionally to the person of the doppel that is seen?
I don't think so.
No.
Because, like the story I told about the school teacher, numerous people saw her doppelganger, and they weren't close to her, necessarily, including parents and other school teachers. So
yeah, the story of Admiral Tryon, there were people just at a party, that a whole number of people reported seeing him. So.
There's a question for me, Shannon Campbell. Question: Noreen, did you get a negative feeling from seeing his doppelganger? And no, I didn't. I had no idea it was a doppelganger. I thought it was my husband. So to me, it was a normal sight that I was looking at. It was my husband, and no, I didn't have any strange feeling at all.
Not even after, Noreen?
No.
Not even after you found out it wasn't him?
No, I was confused. I was just confused. What the hell,
When I heard the story about me, I found it quite unnerving a little bit. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Oh, I
So
know.
I went through with the age.
And of course, I told my husband, I said, you're not going to believe this, but I saw you down here answer the phone. And of course, every time I tell him something like that, I'm nuts. So he thinks anyway. Okay, so another question from Spirit Finder. When you astral project, can we die in our sleep?
That's an interesting question. I don't know how to project. So, I don't know if I've ever heard any stories of people dying when they astral project. Have you, David?
Well, you wouldn't know. that's the problem. I mean, there are plenty of people that die in their sleep.
Right.
projected out and passed away while they were gone, the truth is we wouldn't have any idea. So it's that's almost a paranormal riddle. There's really no way to answer that.
Oh,
unless they were setting up some kind of experiment where they had people in there saying, hey, I'm going to astral project. I want you guys to monitor me, and they die. I mean, I've never heard of anything like that.
I've never heard of that case either.
No, but I have heard something like that. Not as far as astral projection, but if your dream that you do die, that you're just having a normal dream, you see yourself die, and you have a funeral, and people all around you. I did hear something about that, but I can't remember what it was. If you're supposed to die, or what the folklore is about that.
Well, there's a lot of old folklore that people, can dream about the circumstances of their death. And there are some traditions that say if you die in your dream, that it's an omen that you're going to die in your waking life. But, again, I don't think that's something that anybody's really put a lot of solid research into. And once again, it'd be a difficult thing to really, how do you prove something like that?
Mm-hmm. That's true. All right.
You got any more doppelganger questions?
Oh, yeah, I've got some more. From Nancy Sopel. How many?
Couple more.
All right. No more. Royce, honey, no more questions. All right, we'll just take the ones I have. Nancy Sepulveda, what was the scariest story on a doppelganger case you found?
Man. I'd have to, and I'd have to say, personally, some of these, of course, Dave, you got that personal one that that you've just kind of experienced, and that's pretty unsettling. A couple of these stories that I've gotten recently of people seeing a doppelganger that has solid black eyes, that's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman who, and I'm still kind of getting all the details from him, but the gist of it is that he was out with his wife. He went to retrieve her. This is out in public, and approached her from behind and tapped her on the shoulder. And when she turned around, it was his wife, but she had solid black eyes. Now he kind of freaked out and backed away a little bit, and he turned around because he heard a noise behind him, and what was behind him was his wife calling his name. So he turned back, he looked at her. When he turned back around where this doppelganger was, it was gone. So, that's a pretty creepy story, I think.
No.
Yeah, that creeped me out just listening to you tell me. I mean, when it hits home like that, when it's somewhat, when it has to do with yourself, it's always a little more scarier than other accounts you hear, and I can't even imagine if I turned around and I seen my wife and she's got solid black eyes. That would freak. Who wouldn't that freak out?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. From David Voy, is the doppelganger phenomenon perhaps related to this recent parallel universe phenomena, quantum merging, switching of realities?
Well, we've talked about that some tonight. This idea of other parallel universes with other versions of us. So, yeah, that's a potential, certainly.
Lindsay Dullard, can doppelgangers and black-eyed kids be one and the same?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Well, are black-eyed children supposed to be aliens?
Well, that's one theory, but my personal opinion on them is that they're some type of interdimensional entity. So I don't think they're kids at all, not for a moment. And if they're able to assume that form, then there's certainly the potential that they can assume other forms.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mama Joe Buffalo, is it true that we can die? Oh, okay. Is it true? We already talked about this. If we can die if we meet our doppelganger.
That's one of the theories. Yeah, that's one of the theories.
And Lindsay Dollard, last question: Can black-eyed people hurt you?
Well, none of the accounts are positive experiences. I'll say that. I read a whole book about the black-eyed children, and these are people that are running into these entities and becoming traumatized by them. So, I don't think there's anything positive to the phenomenon.
All right, so that was the last question we took. And anything else you want to add to the show, Dave or David Weatherly?
No, I just like to tell everyone thanks for watching, and we really appreciate all your support, all of you guys. And me and Noreen came up with this show because we were talking with each other one day, and we told each other the stories that happened. She told hers to me, and I told mine. And we're like, hey, let's do a show on that. And I said, yeah, we got to bring Weatherly in on this because he's the encyclopedia of the paranormal. So,
Absolutely. And everybody, Dave Spink's book will be published and released by when, Dave?
We're hoping around first, second week of October, sometime around there.
Yeah.
Before Halloween, I'll say that.
And Dave will be on my show first to talk about his book. I'm so excited. I can't wait for it to come out. It's driving me crazy. I can't stand it. And
I'm excited about it.
Oh yeah. And then David Weatherly has 3 books. But David Weatherly, you want to talk about your 3 books?
Oh, you guys check out my blog is twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. That's TWOCROWS paranormal.blogspot.com. There's tons of stuff on there, and there's hot links to all the books. Black-Eyed Children, Strange Intruders, covers a whole range of phenomena. Wood Knots that just came out on Sasquatch. We've got Wicked 46, the book that I came on board and helped Dave tell his story. That's coming out, like Dave said, before Halloween. And then we've got a DVD series that's coming out from Society of the Supernatural. Some absolutely crazy stuff that even if you guys have been following our live broadcasts and stuff, you have not seen in this footage because, as you know, we sometimes live stream for just a brief time, but we don't just go in these locations and do a walkthrough. We spend often, days and several nights in areas and in locations. So this is the real deal lockdown with what we do.
Oh, absolutely.
And tons of footage from it. So, it's just a chore to edit it all down. Dave Spinks has been doing some awesome work with that. And you guys are going to see some cool things, so stay tuned. Check out the Society of the Supernatural Facebook page. And please give it a like and check out our YouTube channel. And be sure to subscribe because you never know, literally, where we're going to show up. Man, we were at the Bonnie and Clyde car a couple of weeks ago, and we were in Defiance at the werewolf sighting, and just we're everywhere. So stay tuned.
Absolutely, and
also, guys, I want to tell Noreen about we have we're partaking and are participants in the world's largest ghost hunt on October 1st here in West Virginia. We're going to be at Old Sulphur Springs, so we're only selling a limited number of tickets to that. 25 people will get to investigate with us all night long. We're going to be doing some book signings and some giveaways. Our buddy Sean Austin will be there. Hopefully we can get him to play a few songs for everyone. His new single is going to be released September 9th to the whole United States. It's already been released in Europe. So we're really excited. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. And, you can see we probably will do some live stuff that night if we're able during the world's largest ghost hunt. There's teams from all over the country doing it. And it goes for a good cause. Monies will be donated to the local animal shelters for each team wherever they're located. And it's just going to be a fun thing that we're a part of.
It's going to be awesome.
And also, we have a really big week of Halloween in store for you guys. So make sure you keep updated on where we're going to be at, what we're doing.
Oh, awesome. I follow you guys, and I've heard of some of the locations that you've been to, and it's absolutely amazing. So when those DVDs are up for sale, you guys have to see some of the stories and the locations that they have on those DVDs are absolutely awesome and amazing. Places that you can't even imagine, and the stories that they have. Well, hey guys, Dave and David Weatherly, Dave Spinks and David Weatherly, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. As always, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and I love having you two.
Hey, we really enjoy it. Thanks a lot, Noreen.
Yeah, thanks, Noreen. It's always fun.
Thank you. Good night. Thanks.
Good night.
Night.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, everybody, thanks so much for joining me tonight for Doppelgangers. Pretty interesting show. I always love having Dave Spinks and David Weatherly on the show, and there are more shows to come with the two of them. I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight, and it was a pleasure to have you all here. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and please give the show a like. And so let's do, so also next Thursday, I've got a fabulous guest, Linda Godfrey, and the show is on Dogmen. So I'm really excited about that show. And then the following Monday, Andrea Perrone will be joining my show, and she wants to come on, and I don't know what the topic is yet. I have to post it, get it from her, but she wants to come on the show and do a live show on my channel. So everybody, thanks so much. Let me do some shout outs. I want to thank the mods tonight. Thank you so much for being here as usual every single week. Royce Hinman, Unique Annie, and Crystal Triplet. And Crystal Triplet and Royce, please, everybody, send prayers and positive thoughts their way. They have medical issues, and they need your prayers. And I think River also, I saw something about River. Everybody, please send your prayers to River and his family. So let me do some shout outs. Phil M., Mama Joe Buffalo, Unique Annie, Elaine Michael, Andrew Cox, Crystal Triplet, Spooky Raven, hi Spooky, Nancy Soplavita, Spirit Finder 321, Royce Hinman, Para Princess Patricia, Real Psychic, Nanny Tristan, Catherine Rocha, Marie Sandra Amador, Robert Trains. Everybody say hi to Robert Trains. That's my techie. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. Say hi to Robert. Janice Bolt, J.H. Sweet, Sandra Miller, Charmy Vapes, Coyote S, DPN 808, Ted Sachs, Shannon Campbell, Lindsay Dollard. Oh, thanks, Spooky. Justin Elias. Love you too, Justin. E.T. Phone Home. Yeah. Lully Tooby. Astral Virgin. Donna Gordon. Yes. Hi, Robert. Thank you, Robert, for being here. I need to call you. No big deal. It's on my end, not yours. Catherine. David Coffin. Nice to see you, David. Jen L. Linda Flygirl. Per Pergolo. It's been a while, Per. Where have you been? Miller. Anyway, so don't forget, next Thursday should be another great show. Kathy Garland, Dogmen. I'm really excited about doing that show with Linda Godfrey. Nora Miles. Anybody else want to shout out? We had a big crowd tonight. Hi, David. Lily Villa Lobis. Anybody else want to shout out? I've got some good shows coming up. Let's see. I don't have my count. Let's see what I have here. Also on September 15th, my friend Mark G. Hewitt, he is an expert on the zodiac. Yeah. Oh, Nancy, I did, honey. Nancy Soplavita, I did do a shout out. My Andrew Cox, BCH Bounds, Joanne Gray. Anyway, my friend who is a expert on the zodiac, he has a periodical that comes out 4 times a year. It's on radians and inches, and we're going to do a 3-part series on the Zodiac Killer. He's never been found. His identity has never been given to anybody. I think they may have an idea, but he was never caught. Anyway, we're going to do a 3-part series on the Zodiac. And then on September 29th, Dave and Sean Austin. Now, Sean Austin is from the show with Ralph Sarchi, the Demon Hunters. So anyway, Sean Austin and Dave, they investigated Sedumsville, which is supposed to be a really evil, disgusting place. And the stories, I've heard Dave tell me some of the story, and it's, oh my God, wait till you hear the story on it. And we're going to do a show on that, because they were both there together, and they're going to share their story and their evidence and talk about the location. I'm excited about that. And then I have another, on September 21st, I have a Barry Littleton. He's got quite a story. He is a connector with aliens. He's been abducted, and he has a fascinating story to tell. So that's for my month of September. All right, so everybody, thanks so much for being here. Anybody else want to shout out? I love you guys. Group hug, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Tonight's the first night of September 1st. Wow, pretty soon it'll be autumn, and that's my favorite. This is my favorite time of the year. August through December is my favorite time. So everybody, have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to have a fabulous weekend. I'll go back to my regular time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. For Eastern. Okay, I will go back to my standard time. So everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Group hug. I'm excited about my weekend. My weekend starts tomorrow, and I'm so excited. I've got a fabulous weekend planned, and we're going to party. So everybody, love you guys. Semicat. And I may start up a Monday night show again. It's in the works, so stay tuned for that. Spooky Raven, thanks, honey. And everybody, Miguel M. Everybody, thank you so much. Love you guys. Have a safe weekend. And I'll see you next Thursday. Don't forget, Dogmen with Linda Godfrey. She's very, very well known in the cryptid community, and she's written several books. And I have done shows with her before. So everybody, good night. And thank you again to my mods, Royce, Unique Annie, and Crystal. Thank you. Love you guys. Good night. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good night.